was online. He's not here, so we'll go to Senator Rennick.
Thank you, Acting Madam Deputy President. And I rise today to speak to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and their so-called reporting of the temperature change in Australia since 1910 and that it's risen by 1.44 degrees. When I read that number, I nearly fell off my chair because in estimates I have asked the Bureau of Meteorology whether or not they report actual observations or their homogenised data. The homogenised data, of course, is based on modelling, based on shoddy mathematical practices that have been highlighted in the 2011 independent peer review that was commissioned by the then Gillard government and whose recommendations have been completely ignored. And I will break that detail down further. So of that 1.44 degrees rise, that was in 2019. In 2020, the temperature had only risen by 1.15 degrees. So the actual temperature in Australia declined by 0.3 of a degree. That decline, of course, was conveniently ignored. Now, on top of that, the homogenisation data runs at about half a degree hotter than the actual data. Okay, so if we take the half a degree off the homogenised data, that brings it back to 0.65. Now, the homogenised data actually ignores changes in equipment. And if you look at recommendation C4 of the independent peer review, they say that you cannot rely on reference stations when trying to detect network equipment changes. And if you also look at their second recommendation at the end on the 10 best sustainable practices in measuring records, they say you should always do a new and old parallel run together. Now, when I asked the Bureau whether or not they had actually done parallel runs here in Australia, they've only done 4 out of parallel runs at 4 stations out of 700 stations in Australia. That is not statistically significant.